Fantastic. Kelly, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for being here. Um, want to quickly give our listeners a bit of an introduction to who you are, what you do, and what's your background in gaming like. So please set the context for us.
Hi everyone. I'm really glad to be here with you guys. I'm Kelly. I am the head of overseas public relations at MOONTON Games, and I've been in the company for I think close to over 3 years, and mostly helping to drive just about all the announcements for MOONTON Games, the MLBB esports tournament, I would say information that's out there, like, things that you see online is probably, dealt or handled in a way or fashion by me. I also help to handle most of the overseas corporate strategy and also the communication efforts that we do, not just for ourselves, but also for the wider I would say mobile gaming ecosystem, to try and also introduce and also to have more women-led or rather women-run initiatives that also includes I would say those like the Mobile Legends Bang Bang Women's Invitational, also speaking to other partners, speaking to other industry stakeholders about running third-party tournaments. That's actually something that we do as well from our end, because we are all very passionate about gaming and esports. And on that note, actually, I have been playing games. I'm actually quite an avid gamer myself, for more than, I would say, like over a decade. I initially started off with PC gaming, but I transited more and more towards mobile gaming because it's so convenient now these days. Especially, you can just game on the go, and you don't really like require a very high spec, I would say, device, etc. For mobile gaming in general. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the narrative across Southeast Asia, right? Mobile gaming is convenient, easy to get into, and it is the de facto device that's given to Gen Z and now Gen Alpha and Gen X as well when they're entering their tech savvy years. So it feels like outside of pockets like Philippines and maybe Vietnam to a certain extent, the entry point for gaming is now mobiles rather than gaming cafes and PC bangs that most folks would go to. Let's try and touch upon the women in gaming side of things, because I believe that's something that you're quite passionate about, and it's something that you've taken a lot of initiatives towards as well. You mentioned the Mobile Legends Women's Invitational. Could you tell us a little more about where the concept began, what's happening next, and why does MWI even exist as a property for MOONTON?
So, how the idea began was that we were seeing quite a fair bit of interest, especially for, women-only tournaments or women-only sort of events, because, esports as it is, right? It's a very general property, but we didn't really see a lot of women athletes or women joining the tournaments. And we asked this question, why not? Why? And it apparently seemed as if, back then, I think a lot of them were feeling a little bit intimidated to join the esports tournament, because esports, or rather the concept as it is, you would think of like a male athlete or a male gamer rather than a woman, actually taking charge and actually, leading the whole team. But now these days, things are very different. We are seeing like a rise in tournaments being women, being driven by women. There are now more, I would say, like women tournaments in itself. But how the whole idea came about was, why are there not enough, or why is there, like, I would say, like such a, a little bit of a disparity in terms of the balance when it comes to participating like genders in one tournament. Why are there not enough women participating in the esports tournament? So that idea began, and then we wanted to create a very safe space, an inclusive space for women and women only to come and participate at our events. Now, I'm not saying that, only males can participate at like a M series or, MSC or basically like an international championship. I'm not saying that. Actually, all along, like our tournaments have always been open and available for both genders, etc. We even had, and this was actually very famously reported back before, in the M3 World Championship, we even had a couple that participated in the World Championship and are champions. They are from Blacklist International, and they did very, very well, and also stunned the whole mobile community as well. Call it anyone can call it as it is, but basically, these are the sort of like, I would say, breakthroughs or stories, or the sort of, I would say, paths that we want to encourage players. If you are thinking of participating, thinking of, becoming an esports player like professionally, don't let, anything hold you back. Don't let anything, and just because I'm a woman, I'm a female, etc., whatever, like, don't let that hold you back from, pursuing your dreams, pursuing what you really want to do. And if that's what you want, then how shall we create an environment that feels safe for everyone to participate in? So, and that came, the establishment of Mobile Legends Bang Bang Women's Invitational. And actually, it is one of the most watched tournaments right now. I think it's beyond that of 500K peak concurrent viewership, especially in the last year as well. And it's something that definitely for us on an ecosystem level, we want to pursue much further moving forward.
Excellent. On that note, right, I believe MWI 2024 is now happening in Saudi Arabia. So let's talk a little bit about how Moonton has supported and promoted women's esports participations in a country like Saudi Arabia. An announcement that Mobile Legends is now going to be part of the Esports World Cup is huge. Adding a woman-only competition in there as well, I think that's path-breaking. I'd love to hear what went into that discussion, what went into the thought process behind that, and, what can fans look forward to from MWI 2024?
I am not part of the, I would say, actual team that brought everything together. But what I can actually share is that we wanted to drive more inclusiveness, especially on an ecosystem level or on a third-party tournament level. We wanted to basically, I would say, nail this in the head to try and introduce, and also not just be, a publisher that pushes for more women in gaming efforts, but to really walk the talk and to really show it. That was the goal all along, and that does not, I would say, derive from the initial intention, right? Which is to basically create a safe space, as I mentioned earlier, and to be more inclusive as well. But to actually push it across, and also at the prestigious Esports World Cup, I think this is something that honestly, from our end, we are very proud to be doing so. I think we are the only women tournament there, and I hope that in the coming year or the following year, we get to see more of these. But like I mentioned before, it doesn't deviate too much from the original intention and the original overarching vision, which is, to make esports for everyone and to make it accessible, to make one feel safe when you participate in one of our tournaments, and know that you're in good hands when you're doing so.
Super. Would you say that these initiatives are also reflective of MLBB's player base? Because I've read reports that unlike a lot of other esport titles across the world, Mobile Legends has a fairly large number of female gamers as well
Yeah,
participating.
you've been seeing like it's kind of balanced, right? Like even if you play it yourself, you actually encounter quite a lot of like women gamers. And does it like shock you?
Yeah, no, I think it's
Yeah.
great, right? Because it's shocking, but in a very, very positive way, I'd say. Because as someone that's grown up playing Dota most of my life, right?
Oh, same. Yeah.
It is super male dominated, and it's not very welcoming to female players as well, right? But I've noticed that that dynamic is a lot different in a game like Mobile Legends, possibly due to various features, right? Like by default, it's harder to talk inside the game. When you do talk, there's easy options to mute and such. So I think through product innovation or through a product focus, you've essentially built a game that is fairly inclusive for women gamers. And I wanted to understand, you said it's fairly balanced. Is it accurate to say that there's a 50-50 split between male and female players in Mobile Legends?
In certain regions, I wouldn't say it's like a, complete or full 50-50 split. But in Southeast Asia, I would say that the balance is very healthy there. Simply because also ML is a game that tries to bring everyone together. That's essentially like one of our principles. We try to bring the community together. We try to bring the gaming community together. We try to create initiatives. So actually back in, I think, 2021 or 2022, we actually had a sort of like a gender / like stereotype campaign called Tear It Off. That was actually done in the Philippines. We engaged a suite of celebrities to actually help us to communicate and to basically be like, sort of like less toxic. So yeah, you're kind of right there regarding the product bit, whereby even that from like, I would say like a promotional level to even like within the game in itself, right? We have been working quite intensively on, say for example, like harassment, abuse, language, speech, all of these things are actually being picked up. And we actually try to cut down, or rather try to ban certain keywords to actually make the space a lot more inclusive as well. Because we don't want this to be, something that's very toxic, very harmful, very unsafe, environment. I keep on bringing the word safe here, but you see, I think when it comes to like a perspective of like a, woman in gaming myself, I obviously like to play games that feel safe, if you get where I'm coming from. Does this part make sense to you?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So if it's safe, or if I feel safe playing a game, I will feel more inclined, to play it every day. And that's like a, sort of like player behavior characteristic here. And if it's safe to play, and if the environment is safe, then obviously, generally I would actually spend more time playing the game. I would invest a little bit more, etc. So it's things like these that we kind of go back to, what do our women in gaming want? What makes them want to play a game? And how do we make that place safe for them to feel inclusive, to feel that, every day they are probably, hopefully not gonna, encounter anything that's too toxic. But at the very least, although the environment is controlled, it's a very, I would say, playful environment. It's an environment that they really enjoy, playing at and on as well. And I think even when it comes to like ranked matches, I think there's also quite a fair bit of very talented women as well in MLBB. So what I'm trying to say is that even for those who are playing ranked, Mythic Glory and above, I think quite a fair bit are women as well. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're looking at this as more than just a sort of social initiative by Moonton, right? There's actually business benefit in making sure that women are being safe or included within the game's player base as well. That's an interesting way to look at it, right? Because most of the media portrays it as a way that, this is being done as a favor or as a PR move. But clearly there is business incentive to have your game be more woman friendly as well. And that is something that Moonton is acknowledging and openly making decisions towards.
It's something like that, but I wouldn't really say it's like a business decision. Actually, it feels a little bit more like a sort of like societal decision, if that actually makes sense. Meaning to say that, hey, even though we are a publisher, right, we still kind of like bear, responsibility over the actions of some players, or we bear the responsibility of, making sure that this place is safe for women in gaming. Because if we can't do that, and if this is like a toxic environment, right, then, like what kind of values are we sort of like, imparting on to the next gen? Because there's so many, especially like Gen Z or children, of the future, right, that are playing out games. So what kind of, role will we actually be seeing? So we also try to think a little bit from like a perspective of a parent as well, when it comes to sort of like shaping that long-term value, because most of the players that play, they're just kids. They don't really understand, right? Like, I think to some or a certain degree, they don't understand how the toxicity affects them and affects like the people around them as well. So you need to kind of try and, nurture certain aspects, and more importantly, make sure that the environment, once again, is safe. Probably, install like certain filters, keywords to be banned, have on-site moderators as well moderating the chat. Although, yes, you are right that, it's not really like now these days, a sort of like function, or rather actually we do have like a lobby system. But regardless, there still needs to be someone who's like monitoring, who's sort of like overseeing as well how things are going, whether or not if the players are being like abusive on game in chat, or what happens if their teammate messes up. Yeah, it's things like that we got to be very, very sensitive about, especially in, I would say, this climate and environment as well. So I think, you also mentioned about this sort of like, I would say, just being in Saudi, but actually no, it's a more globalized effort that we're trying to push across to the rest, or rather to the other corners of the world as well, because there's just so much potential for women in gaming. And I feel like we haven't really hit the, the peak yet, but, I'm not sure about you. Yeah.
I love it. I think as someone that's recently turned father to a baby daughter, I'm super happy to hear this. And it's got me thinking as well, aside from women-only tournaments and leagues, right? How else can Moonton and other publishers like yourselves foster a more inclusive environment for female gamers? Maybe you could touch upon some specifics on what initiatives are taken in that direction.
Like I mentioned earlier on, other than the sort of like tear off the stereotype gender campaign. So actually, what that was to actually sort of like not just remind players, but to put a message out there and let them know that, being toxic will not get you anywhere. It will not help you in your ranked games. It will not help you communicate better to your support, to your healers, etc. It will not get you, basically anywhere. It's just very negative. And that was something in terms of like I would say marketing and promotional activity that we did quite a lot, especially in the Philippines. The other campaigns that we've been working on is to also, and I kind of already mentioned this in a very recurring fashion, was to also work on our system and also work on amplifying, most importantly, like the filters as well, because some of the chats, it can get very derogatory, it can get very, very toxic. It can also, to maybe like a woman, it can feel very sexist as well. So these are things that we've been picking up along the way and trying to also refine the keyword search and the AI as well, working on this. So it's a work in progress. It's not perfect, but it's something that we try to keep the, I would say, social community safe in that sense. The third thing that we've also been working on is to, like I mentioned before, we feel that the esports space don't have enough like professional women gamers, so to speak. There's not enough, I would say, like professional women organizations, teams, etc. So what we've been trying to do is actually put together a women-only tournament and also spearhead this initiative across to the rest of the world. So we've also worked together with official government authorities to actually kickstart women-only tournaments. So one example is actually the SEA Games that is held here in Singapore. It's a pretty, I would say, huge and high priority government-regulated event across Southeast Asia that brings together the top women esports teams and gives them the potential to shine as well. And normally it happens in between the, I believe the May to June period, and also brings together the top men teams as well. So it's actually essentially divided into two divisions, which is women and then you have your men. Last year, we did very, very well, especially with the women team. I believe it was the SEABO team that actually won the tournament in the end as well. And they proved themselves very strongly. Oh, sorry, not the SEABO team. It was actually the Indonesian team, the women's Indonesian team that won. And also the women's Indonesian team won the MWI tournament as well. I think it was Bigatron Alpha. They've been doing stupendously well. Very, very proud of them. And they've actually gone quite, I would say, long path in terms of showcasing that, women can be as good, if not better than men in MLBB as well, and really proving themselves very well. So, in a nutshell, the environment, keeping it safe, creating more opportunities for women in terms of gaming and esports, be it whether or not, is it maybe like a third-party esports tournament, but also giving that same opportunity back to, creating careers for women as well, or potentially creating careers for women. That's also something that we're working on the CSR front. And then also third, which was also to try and create, I would say, campaigns that really break down stereotypes, to also break down, I would say, certain issues that we see while gaming as well, or certain tags that we associate with women in gaming. These are all things collectively that we try to work on for a greater societal purpose. It's not just about our needs, but also to create, or to, I would say, nurture the next generation in the right attitude with a positive mindset, and to also be more open and accepting of what's around them as well.
Also wanted to talk about, you mentioned Bigatron Alpha and, how they've been doing stupendously well. Wanted to understand if there's a fairly large women fan following for MLBB esports athletes, both male and female. You mentioned that MLBB esports was born out of a tournament in a mall, when we were talking offline about how a mall had tons of spectators thronging, more than that were anticipated when the game was in its early days. Do you still see crowds like that? And what's the gender breakup like for, an MLBB spectator crowd? Do you see a lot of women in there?
Yes, I do. And it might be very, very surprising. So I think it differs from like region to region as well. In MPL ID, I would say that it's very balanced, the ratio between men to women, and they can just be as loud and as passionate as well. In Malaysia, I think there is a good balance in terms of like both the men and women. Surprisingly, in Mongolia, where we held the M5 wildcard qualifiers last year together with the Esports Network, ESN, we saw quite a fair bit of women supporters and women fans and women players as well. So I think it depends, I would say. Like, there isn't really 50-50 ratio, but I think it's quite balanced, especially like in some of the regions. Maybe I think for other places, like maybe in Mekong or in Saudi Arabia, where traditionally as well, like the number of players that we have is mostly male, or maybe in South Asia. I think most of them are actually male, but actually, to be honest, we are kind of seeing like a rise, or that inching back towards between like a good women to male like ratio split. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And specifically around Saudi Arabia, right? Can you talk about some of the major challenges that you face when expanding MLBB and MLBB esports to a region like that, to a new market like that? I'm sure there are each location has its own challenges in terms of localization, cultural sensitivity, and so on and so forth. How does Moonton tackle that when entering a new market? Do you have any insights over there that you could share?
I think when it comes to a market like Saudi Arabia, we actually had to work quite a fair bit on the localization on ourselves as well, especially when it comes to Arabic material. We also had to, same thing as per the other regions, try to understand like certain, I would say, cultural holidays, respect the customs, etc. Try to also learn a lot more about, like, I would say, the behavior of the players, especially during certain remembrance days, etc. Because all of these, at the end of the day, it will affect the sort of like overall ecosystem over there, especially when it comes to the player behavior. Understanding the player behavior, the player needs, and the opportunities and the challenges there is very essential to the growth of the app, or an overall, growth of the ecosystem over there. We actually spend quite a fair bit of time talking to the stakeholders, talking to the team owners, talking to the players over there ourselves as well. And we started out very small, hosting community events, small little grassroots events, before we attracted quite a lot of, like, I would say, widespread attention from the general audience over there. And then from then, it made us very confident to launch MPL MENA, given the growth, given the attention as well from the local audience over there. And finally, it reached, I would say, the support of the Esports World Federation over there as well. And now we have the Esports World Cup going on. So it was a little bit more of, I would say, like a gradual, opportunistic growth, rather than something that was very actively pushed, because we really wanted to understand many things, the localization the market needs, how would it actually differ from other countries as well.
Interesting. Do ignore my cat who has decided to come and sit in on this podcast with us.
No problem. I face the same issue every day. I do. And I have 3 cats. Yeah.
Oh yeah, same. Anyway, let's dive into a little bit about competition, right, for MLBB as a game. So I think MLBB was the pioneer for mobiles. Not much existed, at least on the global circuit, outside of MLBB when you hit the market. But now you've got games like Age of K, to some degree Wild Rift, making waves in the international market as well. How does Moonton and MLBB in general maintain and grow its player base in the face of threats like this? What's different about MLBB?
I can't really say the same or speak for competitors, but for us, it has always been the same, to make it as accessible for as many players as possible, which is our overarching vision: gaming for everyone and gaming for all and esports for everyone. To make it as, I would say, far-reaching, and also to make it as localized as possible. So remember what I mentioned earlier on about the Middle East as well, to localize the material, to localize the language, to also localize and make a nice campaign, or I would say cultural campaign that is easy to understand, easy to resonate amongst the players that are living there as well. And to also develop and polish certain aspects of the game that make it, most importantly, because after all, as a gamer, games are meant to be enjoyed, right? But if you're creating a game that's not enjoyable, that feels very tough to play, then maybe something is a little bit like lacking over there. Like, these are things, and especially taking into account of the feedback from the players, it means a lot to us, honestly. And that's how, even up to now, when you think about it, MLBB has been around for very, very long. I think 7-8 years, right? So taking that into account, there's a reason why we've been here in the market for so long. And it's also, honestly, thanks to all of the players and that who really shared very active feedback on how can we improve the gameplay. So maybe one example that I can bring up is actually Project Next. The Project Next is a campaign that we initiated, if I'm not wrong. I think it was 2021 when we first kickstarted this off, or 20 no wait, yeah, I think it was 2021 or 2022. We kickstarted this off as a means to actually completely revamp the emblem system, because the emblem system was starting to be a little bit too complex for the players to understand. And when it comes to a game like MLBB, right, you want to make MOBA, that general concept itself, simplified and easy to understand for players that might not really understand the genre or might not understand it very well. Now, to a very traditional hardcore MOBA player, right, they might bear different, very, very, I would say, they might bear different principles, like, hey, this is a MOBA, right? So there should be like an emblem system, or there should be a very difficult component tagged to it to make it feel like a MOBA. But I think this also maybe creates like a, conversation for another day on the genre in itself. Like, are games getting very simplified, or are they actually getting very hard? Or is it actually maybe because, the demographic or the player taste is changing? So, I mean, that aside, it was more to meet that need of the players, in the sense that the emblem system is getting a bit too complex for us. I think something has to be changed, something has to be revamped. So hence, then came Project Next, whereby we introduced a system that made the emblem system a little bit more easier to understand, less complex, because, there's less essentially emblems to tie back each character to. But at the same time, now, compared to before, it can be customized. So, maybe your Layla can be a tank. Maybe Roger can actually be a jungler, etc. So that was essentially the whole point, whereby we have these characters. We know that they are tied to like a certain fixed role, like, Chip, which is a tank/support, right? But we didn't really want the game to be that way. Why not just make it creative? And why not just make the characters do something and catch your opponent by surprise, to make them do what your opponent did not expect them to do? So why not make it fun again and creative again? So essentially that was the concept, for Project Next. And I think it opened up I would say, a lot of very interesting possibilities, especially that we saw during M5 as well. Many of the professional players, yes, I think they got a little bit taken back by surprise, but I think it was sort of like a more welcome change, because you could see, your beloved characters become and be something else, right? And I think even up to now, there's still quite a lot of opportunities that I think the players probably need to do a little bit more, I would say, investigation, research, and deep diving as well. Which actually makes it very fun, because it kind of opens up that creative element there. And after all, the game is meant to be, a game in general is meant to be fun. It's meant to be, enjoyable, right? So we hope that this part brings at least more enjoyment and more fun to, the general player base. Yeah.
Yeah, I think adding elements like this, where you can turn a tank into a TPS role, or vice versa, right? These are the kind of pocket strategies that teams could occasionally pull out at tournaments, and these always make for exciting, formula-breaking storylines that keep your game and your esports scene active and talked about for a long period. So totally, I love the direction in which the new emblem system has been worked. Last couple of questions I wanted to pose your way before we wrap up here, right? Since you've been doing PR and marketing for Moonton now for three years, what would you say has been the most successful campaign that you've executed or you've been a part of with Moonton?
I would say that it is there are many, many things actually, like, say for example, All-Star 515, many in-game campaigns to actually pick examples from. But I think the most successful, honestly speaking, was the breakthrough of the M Series championship, especially back in M3. So the World Championship for the M3 series was held in Singapore, right? And that was in 2021. That was still a period of COVID. I think we were the only professional or rather international esports tournament that was successfully held in front of a live crowd with all the restrictions implemented, etc. Safety, safety warnings. I know that seems like a world away now that we are now finally in the post-pandemic era, but that was really a very interesting time because honestly, I don't have experience running an event or running like a championship series in a environment that had to be so controlled and had to had all of these sort of like safety restrictions, but needed, very, very much needed still. I've never done any of that before, and I think up to now, like I'm still quite amazed and very thankful for the team that helped to bring this into fruition as well in Singapore, to run a safe event where thankfully, there weren't many like health scares or incidents, thankfully, that happened. But it was one that was like a really memorable and enjoyable event, especially that was, I think, sort of like the Philippines era as well, where most of the Philippines players were shining and the teams were performing really, really very well. So I think with that has to really be one of like the top or the top sort of like campaign that I've worked on, and especially when it came to pushing out the message of esports for everyone and what we do as well for esports. I think that was quite a huge breakthrough back then when we first did the M3 World Championship series. There was so many factors involved, and many of them were very, very challenging, but at the same time so rewarding as well, because I think that really helped to push us bigger and brighter into international stage, whereby finally, mobile gaming can actually be I would say contender, especially in the esports space, to sort of like because I think initially as well there was quite a lot of I wouldn't say like misconceptions or preconceived notions, but more on like, how can mobile gaming fare against PC gaming? I think that was like one of like the sort of things that that back then also we were being like constantly being like questioned against, especially in terms of viewership, PC titles having like much more or generating more like audience base and attention, and us being truly, the mobile title back then that did very, very well in terms of peak concurrent viewership and smashing through records of over 3 million peak concurrent viewers at that time. It was really something, I think. And it's still, thankfully, we are still riding on that very same momentum as well when it comes to viewership.
Fantastic. The last thing I wanted to touch upon is, since Mobile Legends has a very large participation of women gamers, have you seen a corresponding interest from brands marketing towards females participating through Mobile Legends esports?
Yes. So interestingly, in Malaysia, especially, what with us pushing out the MWI Invitational from our end, we actually work, or rather, there is a sort of like all-girl team that is being led by a popular brand called Kotex. They are actually a brand that focuses on that actually focuses on female needs and female growth as well. They actually did a sort of like campaign called the Cortex Eliminators, and they also tried to participate in our MPL Malaysia series for season 13. They created a sort of like fund called Kotex Shiken Fund to try and encourage more women gamers. Despite all the challenges they're facing, they provided them an RM 100K fund and also a sort of like very intensive boot camp for women gamers to try and to also achieve their best within the Malaysia ecosystem as well. So I understand that they actually did this. I think it was like towards the start of this year as well. And as part of the campaign, the gamers, or rather the chosen players, also received Kotex soft and smooth pads that also comes in like various sizes as well for the players. And I think this was something that from our end as well, we supported quite heavily to try and also to dismantle like certain, I would say, preconceived notions about women athletes as well, and to also try to create more inspiring figures across to young girls across the nation as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it's not just the player base that's largely been male dominated across the world of gaming and esports, but also the brands participating by extension of what the perceived player base is. And it seems to me like Mobile Legends and mobile esports in general in Southeast Asia is breaking the stereotype and opening up a new marketing channel for brands targeting young women, tech savvy women. So I think that's pretty cool. That's it. I'm at the end of our conversation here. I'd love to hear what Moonton, Mobile Legends, and you have in store for future fans in the future for fans of the game.
Yes, I am very, very excited for what's in store in the future as well. For many things, and especially for what's ahead. I think especially when the esports World Cup, or rather our mid-season cup kicks in, fans honestly really have quite a lot looking forward to, especially with I would say some of the interesting campaigns that we're going to run over there. So do keep a lookout.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Kelly. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to and learning from you here. And hope to catch up with you at the Esports World Cup soon.
Thank you. Yep.
And that brings us to the end of the episode of the Men of Culture podcast by AFK Gaming. If you've enjoyed this episode or you found it intellectually stimulating in any way, don't forget to subscribe to us on all popular podcast platforms. And of course, any and all feedback is welcome. You can reach out to us on AFK Gaming at AFK Gaming on Twitter, or you can reach out to me personally at the Real Cloud X on Twitter as well. Until next time, I'm going to go AFK. See you around.